On behalf of the entire back-end staff, the service team, the administrative team, I'd like to welcome you to the Insight family. We've been prepping all year to have you guys start this summer, and we're really excited to deliver a knockout service to all the customers you guys onboard this summer. As you probably know, we're the largest and fastest growing residential provider of pest control in Canada, and we got there because of the energy that you guys provide. When a technician shows up to the house, you guys are the ones that are going to inform them what the customer really values. Now, it's important to remember that you guys are not the experts in service and exactly how to go about killing these pests, but you are the experts in communication. So it's your job to relay to our service team exactly what the customer wants. We could spend hours at someone's house doing all sorts of scopes of service, but we want to spend our time doing what's most impactful to the customer. This starts by you providing excellent, thorough, and detailed notes. Again, we want to know what pests they're experiencing, when they see them, and where they see them. Leave it to the technicians to determine things like how many bait boxes we're going to use, what products to use, and where we're going to place them. They're the experts in service, and if we can provide that synergy between our teams, we're going to deliver an incredible service for our customers. Now, exactly what's going to happen at the house? Our technicians are going to start by doing an inspection around the outside of the home and identifying any problem areas. You're going to inform this inspection, again, with your notes. When the technician completes their inspection, they're going to de-web the house, removing any spider nests, wasp nests, or different things that might be around the outside of the house. Then they're going to do a spray around the base of the home, creating a barrier so that bugs cannot push inside the house or come outside. We're then going to apply a dust inside the wall voids. That's going to remove any activity that's harboring inside those walls. We're also going to provide insect monitoring stations and potentially use other baits around the property. Additionally, depending on your province, we're going to provide different bait stations on the exterior of the home that are going to repel rodent activity. And when we come back in the winter, we're also going to rodent-proof the outside of the house. Now, again, I could go on for a long time about the different scopes of service, but those are the main things we want to communicate to our customer. Once again, it's really important that you make us look good so that we can make you look good. Let's all work together this summer to make sure we have an incredible service and really provide value to our customers. All right, everyone, welcome to our second onboarding call of the summer. My name is Mateo. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a really exciting call lined up for you. We're going to hear from two of our best sales trainers. First is going to be Kevin Taddeo, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the sales cycle. And second is going to be Mr. Samo Sebular, who's going to teach us a little bit about knocking doors and some tips and tricks that you can use to really find success out there. However, before we get into that, I want to go over in a little bit more detail some of the equipment we use at our services. You saw just before this a quick little outline of some of the scopes of service, but today we're going to take a little bit more of a deep dive. So in general, our service is separated into two categories. The first one is insect treatments, and the second is rodent treatments. And I've got a couple pieces of equipment from both of those here with me. Let's talk about insects first, moving from the inside of the house towards the outside. So starting on the inside, we're going to use a piece of equipment known as a bulb duster. Generally, we're going to fill this with a product called dry-own dust, which is a contact kill. It comes out like a cloud of dust that then settles inside of a crack and a crevice. You can see it's got this small little straw entry point, so we can maneuver it into little openings around the house and give a few puffs. Now, if you imagine in your head, if you were to get a bag of flour and slap the sides, or if you were to just throw some up in the air, the dust would disperse, create a cloud that slowly settles. Because of this, we're able to get great coverage inside a wall void with just a couple puffs, and we're able to deny pests access to that area of the home. We'll do this in areas that are commonly contaminated with lots of moisture. For example, in a kitchen, underneath the sink, inside of bathrooms as well. In those little access points, we can close off that area to the bugs and remove potential food sources for them and cause them to leave the home. We're also going to do this from the exterior of the home as well, going through what are called weeping holes, which are small openings in the bricks. We can call this a crack and crevice treatment or a wall void dust. So that's the first one. After we've gotten them out of the house, we want to keep them out. And we're going to move to our bread and butter of the service here, which is a backpack sprayer. We call this scope of the service the exterior spray. Essentially, a technician's going to put this thing on. It carries about 4 gallons of product, and we're typically using a product called Polyzone inside of this sprayer. It might be different in different provinces, but the application is essentially the same. The technician's going to throw this on their back, and they're going to do a full spray around the entire perimeter of the home. They're going to go generally about a foot up and a foot out. But again, depending on the nozzle they're using on the end of this or the specific treatment method that they're trying to achieve, that might be bigger or smaller. So let's give our technicians lots of latitude with how they're going to perform the service. But again, they're going to perform an unbroken perimeter spray all the way around the house, and it's going to create a moat around the customer's castle, a force field around their home, so to speak. And so this is a really visible and great scope of the service because it's going to deny pests entry inside the house, and also if they try to leave, it'll take them out as well. So we get this 1-2 knockout punch from our dusts and then our sprays. Now we also have granular products we can apply towards the outside of the house in mulch beds and flower beds. We cannot, unfortunately, granulate the entire lawn or the entire property because that would just be overkill. We're not allowed to do it anyways. So we're going to focus on specific nesting sites in areas that are conducive to bug activity. Now, continuing onwards, we have a couple extra things here. This one here is a ant bait station. You can think of those pucks that people will buy at Home Depot, those little circular ant traps. This one's kind of similar, with the exception being we're using a commercial grade product called Scorpio. Again, this might change province to province, but the technician's going to fill this up with a liquid, close it, and place it in a hard to reach space, generally underneath a sink or in areas where there's lots of ant activity specifically. This stuff's awesome because it's a bait that they take back to the nest, and it works to eliminate the colony at the source. Now, some customers might tell you that the product that they've bought over the counter has some of this residual, right, where they take it back to the colony and feed the queen. Generally, that might be true, but they're in nowhere near comparable to the products that we have access to. You need proper licensing in all the provinces, and you need a lot of product. Moreover, the combination of gels, liquids, dusts, products with different formulations and ways of affecting the insects is what's going to get us the best effect at the end of the day. We also have these glue boards here, which we call insect monitoring stations, which will generally be placed at a house. The point of this here is to monitor what insects are on the property. When a spider crawls across this, an ant, a centipede, something like that, we're going to get one of these that we can inspect in close detail without having to chase an ant that's scurrying around across the ground. We can hold this up, identify that type of insect, and tailor our treatment method accordingly. Now, if we have wasp nests or other places and different nests that are in hard to reach areas like up above in the soffits, we can use a gotcha sprayer attachment, and we can actually hook on our bulb duster to this piece of equipment. I won't do it here because it's fairly involved. We can also hook up a wasp spray, which is just a can, kind of like Raid that you might have seen at the store or seen your parents use. We can mount this on the end of a telescopic pole. This pole reaches up to 24 feet. Again, that might be different province to province, technician to technician. So minimum 24 feet, we're gonna say. You can see we simply screw on this gotcha sprayer attachment. There's a string on it. We hold it really high up, pull the string, and we're able to treat the nesting sites directly, even if they're on the second and potentially even the third story of the house. This is a place where you definitely want to under-promise and over-deliver. So if there's a wasp nest or some sort of area we have to treat that's really high up on the side of the house, let's try to set expectations, because there's nothing more that pisses off a customer than us going out there and just being a couple inches short of being able to treat that nesting site. All right, now while we're on the topic of this brush and insects, we also have this brush head that we can attach to the end of the pole. Again, the pole goes up 24 feet, so we can use this to remove wasp nests if we need to, but usually we're taking down spider webs with this. It's important to remember we're not a cleaning service, so we're not going to go out there and power wash the home, but we're going to go up into all the different little nooks and crannies around the outside of the house, around dormers, around windows, around doorways, and just make sure that we remove any visible nesting sites. Okay, now with the insects, if it's a really, really tough job that's just not going to be taken care of by these exterior sprays and some dusts, we're going to start using gels and potentially even a liquid spray inside the house. You can think of it as an interior perimeter spray where we hit the baseboards all the way along the base where the wall meets the floor. This is going to stop any insect activity that's inside the wall voids from getting out. Since we're applying it to the inside so they can't get in the house, and we're applying it to the outside of the house so they can't get out, and we're applying a dust to the wall voids, and potentially even applying baits such as Scorpio or even gel baits such as Greenway, we're going to be attacking them from a few different avenues, and we're definitely going to knock out those critters. Remember, callbacks are always free, and in extreme circumstances, if we have to do that liquid interior spray that I just mentioned, the customer's actually going to have to vacate the house for approximately 1 hour. Okay, so prepare your customer to do that if they have a severe infestation. 99% of the time, that is not required, but if it is, there's no extra charge. So keep that in your back pocket. Now, let's move on to rodent coverage. There's 2 different times of the year that we're gonna change our rodent plan. In the summer months, we're gonna focus on using these bait boxes. We call this an active treatment because we are actively refilling these baits and removing the rodent activity from the property. This is an anchored bait station because it has a big slab of concrete on the bottom, so it's quite heavy, which means that kids, raccoons, and things like that are not gonna be able to drag this around, take it into the forest, and try to get inside of it. You also need a key to open it, and the inside is shaped like a maze so that anyone that's trying to reach their little paws or little fingers in there cannot actually get access to the bait itself, which goes in the center compartment here. Generally, the way these baits work, they're blood thinners, so the rodents eat them, and over a period of a few days, it slowly takes effect on them. They generally become pretty thirsty, they start to overheat, which generally means they're gonna leave the house in search of a water source, and they're gonna be taken care of once they get there. Now you'll note I said taken care of, I didn't say die, kill, exterminate. Of course, that's what's happening to these critters, but we don't wanna use words like that in a sales presentation. They're generally quite aggressive to use things like that. So taken care of, right? Next one, this is essentially the exact same thing, just scaled down. This box is meant specifically for mice. You can see it's got a smaller hole on the side. So of course, if we're treating for rats, we're gonna have to use these big stations. And if we're treating for mice, we're gonna use these smaller ones. Generally, most houses will have a combination of both, so we just get this massive generic coverage. Now, how many of these guys are we gonna put down? The big box here, generally 1 is enough for basically all houses. However, if it's a really big house with potentially voles or other external critters, we're gonna want to use maybe 2 of these. Now, I said voles with a V and not moles with an M, okay? Cool. Inside of this smaller box here, we're gonna use generally the same bait contract. We might swap it out and use Resolve. Now, when we come back out in the winter months, we are going to continue our active treatment, but we're also gonna perform a passive treatment, which means we're gonna start closing off entry and exit points around the house. We're going to use primarily copper mesh and potentially steel wire to close up these entry and access points. It's important to remember that we're not a construction company, so we're not gonna go up on the roof, we're not gonna put in one-way traps or big chicken wire or dig up around someone's deck to put a fence around it. What we are gonna do though is close up small access points that are within the height of an average person around the outside of the house. Basically anything you can reach kind of from ground level, we can cover for the customer. We can also use this product known as Rodent Stop, which is essentially a caulking glue that contains small metal shards in it. So when the rodents try to chew their way through any openings, they're quickly deterred and they'll try to find another way in. Again, through this combination of passive treatments, closing off entry points, and active treatments with different baits, we're able to generally completely remove the rodent activity from the house. Again, callbacks are always free, but always prep your customer and let them know it might take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for them to really see the effect of the service. So tell them to wait that amount of time before getting a callback. Again, they're always free. We're happy to come out and do it for them, but these products need some time to take effect. All right, did I get everything here? I think I did. So now we're gonna pass it over to Mr. Kevin Taddeo, who's gonna tell us a little bit about the sales cycle.
Hey guys, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Kevin. I've been with the company for now going on my 6th summer. I started when I was a second-year university student at Laurier, a business program. Joined here banging on doors for a summer, and obviously throughout the years it progressed. I've sold pretty well everywhere in the country, in all different provinces. I've sold every different type of homeowner and every different type of bug you could possibly imagine. Today we're going to be going over an actual intro into some of the training. Now, for those of you that have chatted with your managers or interviews throughout the process, I'm sure they've told you we aren't huge believers in scripts here, right? I'm not just going to give you a script and say this at every single door, right? I personally don't believe that would be effective sales training. What we do here is we like to give you a structure to follow, and then you can tailor it to each different neighborhood and each different homeowner and each different situation, right? So you'll hear a ton of different sales training throughout the year. This right here is going to be the golden egg of the sales training, your primary sales structure, and it's called the sales cycle, right? So today we'll go through it step by step. We'll show you kind of how to work through each step and obviously how to deal with objections and ultimately sign that contract, right? So when you're at a door, it starts with your pre-impression, right? As soon as you get into the neighborhood, it is important that you look the part. If you're wearing your ball cap, stick it on. If you aren't, well, make sure your hair is done up relatively nicely and you look professional. If you've got a beard, have it relatively clean cut, or not, completely shaved. You have to have your golf shirt on or your mock neck shirt on. You're standing with your shoulders back in a confident, comfortable way. You're smiling. You're waving to everyone in the neighborhood. Again, you are now the friendly neighborhood bug guy or gal, right? And it's important that you act that part. Now, when you immediately knock on a door, it's important to stand roughly 6 to 8 feet back, I would say. You don't want to be right up in somebody's grill right as they open the door, and then it'd be kind of awkward and confrontational. You want to be 6, 8 feet back. Again, you're not threatening there, right? I'm also going to recommend that you stand at a 45-degree angle to the door, right? And the reason for this is, again, if you are standing, hips square to the potential prospect, again, that's a very, very confrontational, threatening type position from a body language standpoint, right? So you'll stand off to a 45-degree angle. I also recommend that you try and look busy while you're at the door, right? You don't want to just be peering into somebody's windows and door and then you make eye contact and it's all weird as you watch them walk to the door. What I'm going to recommend is you grab your pen and your binder, you stand off to the 45-degree angle, and you pretend like you're writing something down. And then when the homeowner opens the door, it's, hey, and you go right into your intro, right? So again, the pre-impression, the biggest thing is to look the part and again, be friendly, right? You'll then move into your intro. For those of you that have listened to Sales Superstar, you've probably heard our friend Tim Mulcahy preach the importance of third party a zillion times at this point. Third party is the most effective selling tool you could ever use in your entire life. And the reason for this is when you knock on somebody's door, you currently don't have any credibility, right? If any door-to-door salespeople have ever knocked on yours or your parents' house, imagine the first thought that was going through your brain. It was probably, how do I get rid of this person as quickly as possible, right? So you have a bit of that barrier that you're fighting against at the start, right? And the quickest way to gain their attention and gain credibility is to reference others that you've either spoken to or that are using the service on their street, right? So the simple intro, once you knock and introduce yourself, so it's knock, knock, I'll keep it real quick. Just the bug guy with insight. I was next door actually chatting with John, right? You see I've now referenced their next door neighbor. Or I was just down the street chatting with Susie, etc., right? Again, maybe you can ask the homeowner if they know that person, maybe not, but again, the purpose is you're now not just a random salesperson at the door, you're somebody that's at least formed some form of credibility or relationship or connection in the neighborhood, and you're helping a bunch of homeowners get this program done together, right? So obviously you're going to start with your third party, then you move in very simply and blatantly as to why you are there, right? Generally what I'm going to recommend is you match a conducive condition of the neighborhood to why you're there, right? So for example, homes that back onto trees are going to see more bugs, or homes that back onto water or a farmer's field, right? That's a great thing to bring up right away because it's very, very specific and it's easy to understand. Obviously, they know that they live in a neighborhood that's conducive to pest activity, but you're just stating the obvious at that front, right? So it's knock, knock, I'll keep it real quick. Bug guy with insight. I was next door chatting with John. There's no problems, no issues, but it's just the time of the year where, because we back onto trees, they're starting to get a couple of the ants popping up around the outside of the home, right? Or because we back onto a lake, we're starting to get some of the spider activity kicking up in the soffits, right? Or because it's later in the summer, we're starting to get some of the wasps that are buzzing around, right? You can see what I'm doing here. It's, again, we're matching the condition, the conducive condition of the neighborhood as to why there's pests, and telling them obviously why these pests are bothersome, right? From there, you're moving right into your first soft close, right? Again, the purpose here is to try and engage the homeowner. Now, when I say a soft close, it's a temperature check. We want to see if we've gathered any bit of interest at all, right? Kind of see where the customer's head's at. Are they going to ask us a question? Are they just going to tell us right away that they're not really interested and they don't care about it? Obviously, we'll progress and tell you how to deal with all those different scenarios. But the purpose of, again, this intro and this close is just a call to action. See where the customer's head's at. So generally, the way that I like to frame this is, look, so we're going to have a truck out here on Thursday, obviously doing John and Susie. And since we're already here, we're offering the service at a bit of a discount. Do you know what your Thursday looks like? You see, I've ended with a question there. I've asked them to see what their Thursday looks like, because obviously that's going to be our routing day. Or we could use more of an either-or option type close. So yeah, Thursday is going to be our routing day. That's when we're obviously going to be at John and Susie's. That day we're doing it for just half price. Are you guys normally available more in the mornings or the afternoons on Thursday, right? So we've got that basic intro down here, right? And now we're going to get a response from the customer. Now, in terms of the actual sales cycle here, you can see there are 4 main steps. Create the need, meet the need, close, and deal with objections. You might have even seen this in some of your business lectures here as well too. So hopefully it's relatively familiar. If not, you'll hear myself and all the other managers preach this sales cycle a million times throughout the summer, all right? The purpose of creating the need, again, is explaining why we're there. So because they back onto a forest, they're going to get more ants. Or they back onto water, so they're going to get more spiders, etc. Right? So you're again going to kind of bring that up, maybe use slightly different wording. You also want to explain to them why the bug is bad, right? This is an error that I've made over the years. We just assume why homeowners know that bugs are bad, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to cause damage that is financial damage, right? It could simply be an experience. And I'll give you a couple examples. So, for example, maybe ants. Carpenter ants are a big selling tool that we're going to use. They're probably 30 to 40% of your deals are going to be closed off of carpenter ants. They're a larger black ant, mostly in forested communities, and they actually bore through wet wood. So decks and sheds, those are wooden structures that are on the outside of the home. Those are at risk of being susceptible to damage from these carpenter ants. You might explain that to the customer. Or maybe it's an experience. You want to talk about wasps. Well, wasps, obviously, they sting people, and that's problemsome, but they're not, it's not a life or death scenario, and they're not going to cause you a ton of money. So you might want to explain the potential scenarios where homeowners have been experiencing wasps. So, yep, it's just the time of the year where, a lot of homeowners are liking to spend some time outside, and the wasps can be quite bothersome, swinging around your head when you try and barbecue out back, right? If anyone's ever barbecued and has wasps swinging around their head, you guys know it's not fun. Again, trigger that memory in the customer's brain. Right? Or maybe it's spiders, right? Especially for the homes that we knock on in the water, especially the middle to high income homes, they care about how their home looks, right? And when spiders build a ton of webs up on the soffits and the eaves of the house, and it looks kind of ugly, and obviously these homeowners spend thousands of dollars a year on just property maintenance. Why would they not spend another couple $100 a quarter just to keep the home looking clean, right? Keep the webs off the house, and obviously the spider crap, when you see those little white spots on the windows, that doesn't look very good. So again, that's something that you can communicate to the homeowner. Or maybe it's mice, right? Mice are bothersome, obviously, because they carry ticks, which are a big concern, especially over the last couple of years. They also carry a lot of diseases. Maybe they've gotten to a garage and ripped apart a bag of bird seed and a grass seed in the past. Maybe they've gotten to into a shed, and they've gotten to a lawnmower or a car or something. Again, you want to explain some of these scenarios and it create the need, right? Now, again, the purpose here is you don't want to tell the customer everything we're doing. It's generally not a good idea to explain every single bug and why every single bug and rodent is bad. You'll overwhelm the customer, and honestly, you're probably going to lose their attention, right? So what I recommend when you move into your create the need is you do 1 to 2 critters max, right? So for this example, we'll say ants, right? Yep, so a lot of the homeowners are, it's just the time of the year where, because we back onto the forest, we're starting to get a couple of those ants, especially the mid-sized black ants that kick off the trees. A lot of the homeowners are seeing them around, decks and sheds, and obviously the carpenter ants that can do a bit of the wood boring activity, so it's something that we definitely like to nip in the bud before it kind of gets a little, too problematic, if you will. And again, that's my create the need. Meet the need is simply explaining the scope, right? So we've created the problem. Now, how are we going to solve that problem, right? Again, we solve it from explaining the scopes that Mateo just explained previously here, right? Again, for the ants, generally, our two main scopes of service are going to be the wall void flush / wall void dust, and it's going to be the exterior spray as well, right? So again, ants kicking off the trees, they're starting to be a little, problematic just because they're getting around the decks and the sheds, and we want to prevent them from, boring through too much wood and causing any damage there. I'm going to have my tech out on Thursday. Basically, he's going to do two things. First, he's just going to inject a couple of these weeping holes with a bit of dust. It's going to flush out any activity that's trying to push inside the home. And then secondly, once we've got everything out, we want to keep it out. So we'll follow around the exterior of the home with a perimeter spray, foot up and a foot out, and that'll seal it up with effectively an invisible barrier to make sure that none of these critters can get back inside and cause any damage, all right? So hopefully you can kind of see what I've done there and you're following along. Again, we've created the need, explained why the bug is bad and why it's there, and we've met the need with our service. Again, create a problem, solve a problem. Your standard, you'll hear that in every business lecture, and the foundation of every business is built off of, there's a problem, let's solve it, right? So again, we're doing the exact same thing here. Lastly, you are going to move into a close. Again, as I've touched on briefly, a close is a call to action. You want to ask the customer for the order. You want to ask them to buy this without just blatantly saying, do you want to buy this? Because that is not very clever, right? Again, generally we want to be assumptive with our tone, and we want to give them either an alternative of choice type question, or a question that's going to incite them to either say, yes, let's do it, or yes, I'm home on Thursday, or ask a little bit more info, or to flush out an objection. So the standard close that you're going to use typically most of the time on your first sales cycle through is going to be something called a schedule close, right? You're going to ask the homeowner if they prefer a morning or an afternoon window, right? If they respond with either morning, well, great, you're going to likely go into the price and start signing them up, right? If they don't respond with a timing window and they give you some form of reason why they don't want to buy this, well, that's an objection that you can then deal with, right? So again, straight on through, we've met the need by wall void flush. We're going to spray exterior spray, a foot up and a foot out around the outside of the home. As I said earlier, Thursdays are our routing day. That's when we're already going to be at John's. Obviously, if you can get it done on the same day, we do it a little bit cheaper. I have windows in either the morning or the afternoon on Thursday. Do you have a preference whether we do it in morning or afternoon? Again, that's one loop down and through the sales cycle, right? Now let's go with the example of an objection. For the most part, the majority of your sales, you are going to have to deal with some form of objection, right? And that could range from the homeowner wants to think about it, or they want to talk it over with their spouse, or maybe it's a bad time of the year, or they don't think that they have the money right now, or whatever it is, right? There's going to be a variety of different reasons why homeowners feel that, they're not eligible, they don't want to purchase this service, right? Truthfully, what all of these objections really mean, regardless of what the customer says, is it just means that they're not certain they want to buy it, right? Most people are too nice to tell you no straight up. They don't want to tell a nice student at the door with a smile that's pretty friendly, no, I don't want a kid, get out of here, right? So they make up excuses. My wife normally makes these decisions. Let me talk to her and I'll give you a call if I need it, or give me a card, we might need this in a month, I'll call you, right? That really means no. So treat it as no, right? And that's where the true sales cycle is going to come in, right? Again, look at this objection as you have not built the value in what you've said yet. You have not caught their interest. You've not built the value to a spot where the homeowner is willing to part with their money for the service yet, right? So you have to find a way to get to a spot where you can create a new need and meet a new need, hence building more value in the service, right? Increasing their certainty level, all right? So how do we want to deal with these objections? Well, I don't recommend you just steamroll it and go right past. Generally, the structure that you want to deal with these objections with is you want to acknowledge what the homeowner has said, make them feel understood, make them feel like they have been heard, and then you're going to smoothly cycle into a spot where you're going to create a new need, right? You can see in this example, the reason that I've started with just ants is now I have the ability to create a new need off of spiders. And maybe I close again and they're still not certain. They give me another objection. Now I can go to wasps. Oh, maybe we've got them there, but they're not quite there yet. Oh, now we're going to go to mice. Oh, you do the mice as well too? Great, perfect. And now they understand the entire service. Again, this is the reason though you don't want to explain everything at the start, because if they give you an objection, you're kind of screwed. You don't have the ability to go anywhere else, right? But if you start small and slowly layer on, that's when you're really able to cycle through these objections multiple times and ultimately move this deal to a spot where you're closer to closing it, right? So I'll give you an example of how I would deal with an objection with the framework that I just mentioned. So say somebody tells me they have to talk to their spouse about it. Again, I want to acknowledge it. This is the perfect time to make a joke where somebody says they got to talk to their wife, and I'm like, hey man, absolutely, I'm here to kill bugs, not marriages, right? In all seriousness, while I'm here, when I was chatting with Jody next door, she had mentioned that just because of the creek back there, we do get a couple of the spiders that they tend to pop out usually come June. And they start to build some of those webs around the outside of the home, and homeowners are out here with a broom knocking them down all the time, but they find that they keep coming back and they don't really like the way that it looks on the house, right? So, what I'm having the tech do for Jody is he's actually coming through and using a giant Q-tip, and I'm gonna go into the service explanation that Mateo had just explained, right? Hopefully you can kind of see what we're doing there and how this structure is following. I'm then gonna move in for another close. I could even use the exact same close that I've just used before. Maybe I'll want to change up the wording just so I don't sound like a robot. But, as I said, Thursday's the day where obviously we're getting the spiders and the ants done for Jody there. She'll be, I believe it's in the morning, so she'll be sometime between 9 to 1, or I could do a 1 to 5 window if that worked better for you. Do you prefer either, a 9 to 1, or would you prefer something later in the day, like a 1 to 5, right? Again, we've changed up that wording. I've now gone in for another close. Oh, maybe the homeowner tells me they still want to think about it at this point, right? No problem. Take your time with it. No rush at all. While I'm here, I'll give you a bit more info, though. John, actually down the street, he had mentioned that, especially in the fall, we get a couple of the mice that kick off the farmer's field. That's, about a block back there. They don't necessarily get inside the home, but they've got into some of the garages and sheds, and they can chew at some of the wiring. It hasn't been too fun. So what I'm having the tech do is toss down a bait box, right? And we'll come back and proof up the home. So you can see again how I'm looping through this entire cycle multiple times, right? And hopefully this isn't terribly overwhelming, and don't be scared if it doesn't make perfect sense right away. Again, that's the purpose of, when we're actually out there on the doors. We're obviously going to have an orientation day or two at the start of the summer where, we'll get you guys to all say this a million times, and it should be, relatively in rhythm, and you should have it kind of nailed down. But the true learning is going to come once you're actually out there in the field and that first day when you bang on 100 doors, right? So you're going to get to see all these objections in live time. You're going to learn how to deal with them. You're going to fill out your first contract, hopefully, and you'll obviously be able to build, momentum and rhythm after that, to the point where after a week or two, hopefully this cycle is, subconsciously ingrained into your brain, and you're not having to just consciously think about it, right? Cool. So to finish this off, I'll go through an entire role play of a pitch. I'll go through the entire sales cycle, starting from the very beginning. We'll handle an objection or two, and then obviously you'll kind of see this front to back, right? So obviously your pre-impression, I'm going to start 6 feet back on the door. I'm standing at my 45-degree angle. Knock, knock. Hey, sorry to bug you. I'll keep it real brief. I'm just the bug guy out here with Insight. I was next door chatting with John, and actually a couple down with Susie. No problems, no issues. It's just obviously because we back onto the forest, we're starting to see a couple of those ants, especially the black ants this time of the year, hanging around some of the, the decks and patios and sheds and whatnot, right? I'm going to have a truck here on Thursday. That's our routing day. And since we're obviously servicing John and Susie already, we'll do it for a bit of a discount, right? Do you know what your Thursday is looking like? Oh, you're going to be here, but what do we do? Okay, cool. Yeah. So obviously, just because of those black ants kicking off the trees, they're the carpenter ants, right? They're the ones that hang around the wood structures, and they've been known to cause a bit of damage just boring through some of the wood structures. Obviously not an issue, but it's something we kind of want to nip in the butt before it starts to build throughout the summer months. When I'm going to have my tech out here, we'll be doing two things. First, if you see these entry points, these little breathers in the brick, we'll inject them with a bit of dust. This will just flush out any activity that's close to the home and making sure nothing kind of scoots in. And then once we get them out, obviously we want to keep them out. So our tech will follow up with an exterior spray. He'll go a foot up and a foot out around the entire perimeter of your home, effectively create an invisible barrier so none of these critters can kind of get back in and cause any damage to the structures, right? Like I said, Thursday is our routing day. That's when we'll be offering at a little bit cheaper than if you were to just call in. I have windows either in the morning or the afternoon on Thursday. Which would you prefer? Morning, but I got to talk to my wife. Absolutely, man. I'm here to kill bugs, not marriages, right? Haha. Honestly, in all seriousness, just when I was chatting with Jody, she had mentioned that just because of the creek back there, we do get a couple of the spiders, especially over the next month or so. They'll start to build some of the webs around the outside, and a lot of the neighbors will get frustrated because they're out here with a broom or a hockey stick every other day removing them, and they keep coming back, and they don't really like the way that the webs look around the outside of the home. So what I'm having the tech do is actually come out here with a giant Q-tip. He's going to remove all the webs around the outside of the home, and then we'll treat just to make sure these critters don't come back. And obviously the great thing about us is if at any point these spiders or ants are coming back, just call us. We'll come back for free. It's all through warranty, right? Now obviously Thursday is that day where we're doing the spiders and the ants for both Jody and John there. I have windows that are either 9 to 1 or 1 to 5. Would you prefer like an earlier window like 9 to 1 or maybe something later like 1 to 5 if you'd like to be home for it? 1 to 5? Okay, cool. And then we'll go into pricing and obviously filling out the contract. That's something that I'm not going to touch on today. We don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but hopefully this was helpful. Again, don't be scared if it's slightly overwhelming here right now. We just covered a ton. Again, the true learning is going to happen when you're actually out there on the doors and you're applying this and you're saying it a million times, and after a couple weeks, hopefully this structure is ingrained into your brain and you're doing it at more of a subconscious level, right, as opposed to having to actively think about it. You're going to hear tons of different sales training and theory from all the different managers in the company, as well as external sales training if you prefer to seek some of that out yourself. Again, it's important that for this point, you just focus on the fundamentals. This is what your sales pitch should be based off of, and then you can layer on that additional sales training as we go throughout the summer, right? The strong foundation is important, and this is what it's going to be based upon. So hopefully it's pretty helpful. If you got any questions, reach out to your manager. Feel free to DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm always happy to help, and thanks for tuning in.
Hey guys, there's free pasta in the fridge.
Man, what are you talking about pasta? Sam was supposed to be here like an hour ago, and we start in 30 seconds. He's supposed to do his whole bit.
Три полоски, три по три полоски, три полоски, три по три полоски, три полоски, три по три полоски, три полоски, три по три полоски. Хардас тусовки, Адидас кроссовки. Три полоски, три полоски, три полоски. Три полоски, Хардас тусовки, Адидас кроссовки. Три полоски, три по три полоски, на штанах полоски, три зачетных соски. Три полоски, три по три полоски. Мы не боимся, в углах не таимся. Три полоски, три по три полоски. Здесь все тусуют, под Хардас танцуют. Три полоски, три по три полоски.
Кирсране.
Три полоски. Три полоски.
Hey boss, how's it going? Hey guys, nice to meet you. My name is Samo. I'm one of the regional managers with Vantage and a partner with Insight here in Ontario and Quebec. I've been with the company for about 5 years now, and I started in the same role that you all applied for, which is the summer sales rep. And just a little note on the video, that was not real alcohol. We don't, endorse any substance use or anything like that at Vantage. We just keep it healthy and obviously build a culture of performance. So that being said, let's get into knocking 101, right? So what we're going to talk about today is not only the verbal part of, making the sale that Kevin explained earlier, so how you structure and present and organize your thoughts, but also everything else that goes in it, right? Because I believe that if you follow certain principles here when knocking doors, you're just going to be much more likely to close the sale and get the customer across the finishing line. So the first thing here, let's talk about appearance. You're going to get some really cool uniforms, lanyards, and hats. We typically go for a sporty look, meaning that you're going to want to wear some shorts or maybe a skirt if you're a girl, and then some comfortable running or walking shoes for the summer. So since we're out and about the whole day, you're going to want to be comfortable and, again, not look salesy, right? Because we're trying to step away from looking like salespeople and instead more like bug boys and bug girls. Because dress for the job that you have, not try to be too salesy. Okay, second one is jewelry. Try to not wear anything flashy. Again, if the customers think we're trying too hard, they're gonna think that we're trying to sell them something, right? So just step away from that. It's totally fine to wear some, subtle necklaces or bracelets, but don't come around the hood with a diamond in your tooth or some big Cuban links. Just keep it simple. Sunglasses, big no-no. The reason why is you want to maintain eye contact with the customer. They need to see your facial expressions. That's a big part of the sale. It's something we're going to touch on later. And also, again, not look like a salesperson, but instead like a bug boy or bug girl who just stepped out of the truck, just seeing, if they want to jump on the discount that we're offering to the neighbors. Second big part of what's important, in my opinion, here is the overall attitude. Right, so one of my favorite quotes of all time comes from Winston Churchill. It's attitude is a small thing that makes a big difference, and it's true, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything, and it couldn't be more true for door knocking, because the fact is that each interaction that you have is not a sum of your previous failures or successes, but it's a whole new chance to make a sale, right? And even if a prospect doesn't necessarily have the best day, if a good-looking, well-spoken person such as yourself comes with a big smile on their face, you're not only gonna make the customer's day, but also significantly increase the chances of you actually making the sale, right? So just keep in mind, keep a big smile on your face and have a great attitude, right? Aim to have each interaction end on a positive note, even if you don't make the sale, right? And if you kind of keep this attitude going for the whole day or hopefully even the whole summer, you're going to see much higher sales numbers as opposed to, being kind of passive aggressive with the customers, because it's sometimes easy to get in your head. So just keep that in mind. Okay, when we talk about the actual, walking and knocking aspect, I like to think of a door-to-door checklist, right? And that starts walking up to a prospect's house. At that point, you're in the detective stage, which means that you're observing and trying to see what's special about their house and what type of activity they see, right? So Kevin explained in the sales cycle how it's important to talk about the scopes of the service, and if you know exactly which scopes you want to touch on before you start the pitch, again, much more likely to get a sale, right? If you see somebody having a lot of spider webs on the roof or a wasp nest, you're not gonna start opening with mouse aspect of the service or exclusionary work, right? But instead you're going to talk about how we help neighbors get rid of the wasp nests, clean up the spider webs, and you really try to push on the problems and issues that you see that the customer has as opposed to something that you assume they have. If the house is clean, again, talk about the maintenance aspect. There's a lot of ammo you're going to have by knowing the service, so just an important part to see what actually makes sense, to talk about on the doors. The second part is the pre-impression, again, something that Kevin also touched on. One of the most important things here with pre-impression is to look busy on the doors. When you knock at the doorstep, there's a big difference if you knock and stay like this and just wait for the customer to open, as opposed to if you look like a busy professional, hold your binder, wait for them to open the door. And at that point, even look a little bit surprised. Oh, hey, how's it going? Right? because that way the customer is going to feel like not that you're interrupting them, but vice versa, they're sometimes interrupting you, and you immediately shift the perception they have of you, right? Make the doorstep your office, be comfortable, and know that the customer, when they open the door on their own doorstep, they're actually stepping into your office, right? It's a small mindset change, but it makes a huge difference, right? And it's up to you to then act out the service, be a little bit of an actor, and show, we're gonna do this, we're gonna use a big D-Web brush, go all around the soffits, and make sure to look where you point, right? Because the customer will also look at where you're pointing, and this is how you direct their eye contact and also their attention. Because if you just talk to them and maybe not even keep eye contact with them, you're going to lose them, right? They're gonna get bored of you, and they're not gonna retain anything that you're saying. So again, be as active as possible, get them around the house, be assumptive. And it's, of course, those are all things that you're gonna practice with your managers on day-to-day correlations, but it's just, what to expect in the first couple of days and first couple of weeks, so you can alleviate that learning curve as much as possible and obviously get off to a hot start. Okay, that's that. Let's talk a little bit more what it goes into making a sale, right? Each sale, no matter the industry, has 3 main components. The first one is value. Second one is need. And then the third one is urgency. It's important that we build up all those 3 aspects. The reason why is each one plays an important role in getting the customer across the finishing line, and here's why. If a sale has value and need, but no urgency, customers will say, oh, I have bugs, I know I probably should do something about it, but I don't know why I should do it now, right? And the way that we can build urgency here, specifically in pest control, is we can offer neighborhood discounts, right? The reason why I'm here is because I'm working with Johnny and Mary just across the street. If we get you done the same time, we're gonna get you done for half off, but I only have 2 spots left on the route. And oftentimes you're gonna see on your system, on the CRM that we use when you sell, there genuinely is a limited amount of spots. And when those fill out, it could be that they're gonna have to wait for a couple of days, right? But obviously we want to build that urgency. Hey, we wanna get you done the same time as your neighbors so that you can get on the discount route, because otherwise it's gonna be more expensive and nobody wants to pay more money if they don't have to. If the sale has no value, but it has need and urgency, right? Customers are going to say something along the lines of, I know I have ants, I need to get rid of them right now, I know that, but it's just way too expensive, right? And it usually comes to the price objections. Now, the way that we build value typically is by explaining more scopes of the service. And again, what we do with Insight here, it is the best pest control service anywhere in Canada, right? It's the most thorough, and it also has a lot of scopes, some of which a lot of other companies charge extra for, right? For example, the light exclusionary work that Matteo explained, and even cleaning up the soffits of spider webs, we do all of that for the same price that they pay for anything, right? Now again, keep in mind that if somebody only has a certain amount of activity in terms of, let's say, wasps, don't try to sell them on ants, right? But you can, of course, use all those scopes to build extra value to the sale if they give you price objections. If the sale has, if the customer sees the value and urgency, but no need, they might say something along the lines of, hey, I know it's a really good service, and I know it's a good price, but I just don't feel I need it. I feel like I don't have a lot of problems, right? And this is where we usually get, I don't have any bugs objection. The way that we overcome that is to talk about the preventative maintenance aspect of it, right? Meaning that the service that we provide, it's not just extermination. In fact, most of the sales that you're gonna sell this summer, they're not about people having massive problems, but it's about keeping the home clean and safe and making sure that there's no activity, coming in for the long term. And pretty much every house here in Ontario that you're gonna knock on, they can benefit from a service like this, right? Whether it's a new build, we're gonna make sure nothing starts nesting. if it's an older build, inevitably within the wall wise, there's going to be activity, right? So no matter the situation here for the prospect, there are a lot of things you can talk about to build a need. And once you have all of those three ready, this is usually when you get the customer to sign on the dotted line. Of course, if you come in with a ninja close, it's important to close, right? Like Kevin explained in the sales cycle, a lot of the times people forget to close and the customer is almost never going to sell themselves. So make sure to throw the ball in their court and see how they react so you can handle their objections, go back in the sales cycle, close, walk away with a sale. A couple other things here about just the general interaction with people. Try to be not so much of a presenter, but more of a conversationalist. And what I mean by that is the more the customer speaks back to you, the more likely they are to kind of sell themselves, right? You want to engage them in a conversation and not instead just dump all the product knowledge on them because you're going to lose their attention. And by week number 2, you're most likely going to know more about bugs and pest control than 99% of people are going to talk to, right? And still you have to make sure at that point to kind of dumb down the whole process and only go into details if people actually want to know the details, right? But keeping it simple, it's usually the best way to go. Second one is try to identify what they actually have by asking questions. Again, that all relates back to the sales cycle, creating the need, right? To see what they have, what their pain points are, and finding solutions to those things, closing them on those things instead of building too much value on the other scopes, right? Keep those as kind of an ammo in your back pocket just in case you need to build more value. Lastly here, humor. People are people, they're not robots. And oftentimes, again, if you throw in a little joke, obviously you have to read the situation, but if you throw in a little joke, it's going to help you as well, right? Because if the customer has a pleasant interaction with you, it's going to make a huge difference. So just make sure to have fun, and you're going to start getting a lot of sales. What we say to the customer only represents typically about 7% of the entire message we're trying to get across, right? Everything else is nonverbal, whether that's the pitch and tone of your voice, whether it's your body language, whether it's your facial expression, right? So some key nonverbal tips and tricks that I can give you is, again, have an open body, right? Don't cross your arms in front of the customers. That's just very high level stuff because you want to keep an open channel for interaction here. And be mindful about your facial expressions, right? If somebody, if you see the customer, for example, raising your eyebrows, it means they're interested in what you're having to say. If somebody's trying to kind of get away, whistle out of the situation, oftentimes you're going to see them starting to look around and get entertained by everything that's in the background. At that point, you have to get their attention back, and you can get that by maybe asking a question or sometimes even throwing a binder on the floor and starting to show something, right? Which is why, like we said earlier, it's important to always direct their eye contact and their attention, because otherwise if you just talk to them, you're going to lose their attention. Tone of voice, it always depends on who's in front of you, right? So try to read the person. For example, if it's an older lady, you can come in a little bit more apologetic manner. Hey, sorry, ma'am, I'll be super quick. We're just working with the neighbors. As opposed to if it's a biker dad, be more assertive, right? And maybe have a little bit of a lower tone of voice, but it makes a lot of difference, especially if you learn how to mirror people, both in their body language as well as what they have, how they talk to you. Cool. So a couple other things. Let's talk a little bit more about the discipline on the doors, right? It's an important thing to work your area properly. And again, this is something that you're going to go more in depth with your managers. But the amount of doors that's assigned to you and the quality of the areas, they're not random, right? It's not like that we just put a grid on the map and say, this is your quadrant, go work it. But we pay a lot of attention to a lot of different factors when choosing where you're going to work for the day or the next couple of days, right? For example, the proximity of conducive conditions to pest activity In other words, just where the bugs are. We want to put you in a situation where the neighborhoods are buggy. Second one is income of the neighborhood, right? You're never going to find yourself knocking in ghetto, but we typically hire more upscale neighborhoods where people have no trouble affording the service. And then the third one is just the previous success we've had in this area, right? On your CRM, you're going to be able to see all the existing and all the and some of the past customers. And it's much easier if you knock on the door and say, hey, again, we're working with John and Aaron, Matteo over here. If we get you done at the same time, it'll be real cheap, right? And it instantly gives you credibility because you already work with the neighbors, as well as urgency because they know, hey, it's a limited time thing. They're with the neighbors on Wednesday, right? So make sure to use all those tools, which is why, again, the areas that are assigned to you, work them thoroughly. Sometimes we see rookies going one circle, get 80% of no homes saying, hey, I'm done with the area. But the fact is, the more sales you make in a certain neighborhood, the more people you're gonna meet, the more people are gonna know you. So really make sure to juice out those areas, right? Even if you have on the fourth day 20% of no homes, and if you already made 5 sales, you're much more likely to close one of those last 20% of no homes, as opposed to going to a whole different neighborhood, starting from scratch, having a lot of doors, because you have to establish yourself in the neighborhood and also figure out what type of activity they have, and maybe if there's already another pest control company, and just find out other stuff, right? Sometimes we see that if we spend, in 4 or 5 days in a certain neighborhood, we know all the guys know us, and sometimes people also use group chats and start referring their new pest control person to their neighbors, right? So try to integrate yourself with those guys and girls in the neighborhood as much as possible, because you're gonna get a lot of referrals. A couple other things, breaks. In my rookie year, I've never really taken a break for lunch, right? It's not like that I drove to McDonald's or Wendy's for 2 hours, but instead having like a little banana or an energy bar in the pocket makes a huge difference in terms of not wasting your time, right? Or some guys that I know, they also put in lunch boxes, hide them in the bushes. Obviously nobody ever touches them, and they just go half an hour, take a break, eat the food, go back on the doors. The reason why that's important is not just time, but also momentum, right? For those of you who have already listened to the Sales Superstar, you know that momentum in sales is very important. And what you want to do is, when you're on hot streak in a day, there's nothing worse than taking 2 hours off, eating lunch, right? And then coming back and losing all that energy from making a sale a couple hours ago. So if you're in a hot streak, just go until it's dark outside, and I can promise you're gonna make a lot more money this summer. Another big tip that I have is turn your phones off. Seriously, right? No social media. That's a tip that Jordan Earl gave us on one of those training calls before my rookie year. And I remember him saying, I can guarantee you guys, if you turn off your social media over the summer, especially when knocking doors, you're gonna make on average $5,000 more. And it's very, very true, right? Distractions when you're knocking are the worst, because again, they take away from your momentum, as well as I'm blanking here. So the momentum as well as the attention that you're giving customers, right? And you lose a lot of that at the detective stage, because instead of observing the neighborhood and seeing what type of activity they have, you're looking at your phone and seeing if your girlfriend or boyfriend texted you back, right? So just lose that. For those 6 to 8 hours that you have every single day on the doors, make sure to really focus on the job and just shut everything else off. Because again, this is, it's something that you're doing for 3 months. It's not something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. So really maximize those 3 months. One thing that we like to say is that even though this is a summer position, right? If you treat it as a summer job, you're going to get paid accordingly. If you treat it as a profession, you're going to get paid like a professional. And if you look at, the top 5, top 10% of the reps that we have, whether that's rookies, whether that's experienced reps, I mean, those guys and girls are making more than freaking doctors per hour, right? But again, it takes some sacrifice together, but it's totally worth it. Nobody says at the end of the summer, I wish I worked less hard. Everybody just, wishes they knocked a couple doors more and made a couple more bugs, killed a few more bugs. Lastly, I want to touch on the routines, right? One thing that we obviously hope to create here with Vantage is, the culture of being healthy and the culture of performance. But it doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym every single morning. And the reason why I say that, I know that a lot of people are probably going to be mad if I say that, but try to create a routine that works for yourself, right? Most of the guys and girls, here that we hire, a lot of you go to the gym every single day. But hey, if you don't, that's fine. In my rookie year, I was not a big gym guy. I'm still kind of not like a huge gym guy, but that's beyond the point. What I'm saying is, if you find a routine that works for you, whether that's maybe sleeping in sometimes on the weekends, or whether that's staying up a little bit later to meditate, that's totally fine, right? Find something that works for you, not something that works for somebody else, and then copy it. Of course, if you eat nutritious food and if you don't watch Netflix super late every single night, that's kind of given that it's going to increase your performance, right? But if you like to sometimes enjoy those guilty pleasures even during the work week, if you find that it increases your performance, hey, feel free to do it. So yeah, try to find something that works for you. But again, if you're in a good physical shape, if you're in a good mental shape, it's going to significantly increase your performance over the summer. Lastly, I know we're running close to an hour here. It's a fun job, right? Over the interview process, we of course stress out that it's difficult and it's one of the hardest things that you can do. And it's true, right? A lot of people can't last the doors, but it's also a fun job. It's a low risk environment where, pest control is not a high ticket item. It's $800 to maybe $1,200 a year. It's not a huge expense for people that we're selling it to. So try out new things. Make sure to see what works for you, what doesn't work for you, how different cultures react to what you have to say. And each door is a new opportunity to do that, right? So just have fun, throw in a couple jokes, maybe try in a couple accents. If you need any accent advice, Mr. Jackson Borston, he's a good guy to teach you those things. And really, it's all about having a good summer, right? And increasing your, obviously, learning, your earning, and the people that you get to know. So that's that. Okay, we're close to an hour. I'm gonna wrap it off here. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We're gonna see you on the next call. And good season prep. We'll see you all soon.